Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the journey of the fleet-footed Mercury through the watery, emotional cardinal sign of Cancer, which begins on June the 27th at 12:24 a.m. Universal Central Time. This is going to go on for just 2 weeks, 15 days, before on the 11th of July, Mercury arrives in Leo. So what does Mercury in Cancer mean? I'm going to explore that. I'm also going to take a look at the event chart. So when Mercury moves, that snapshot gives us a huge amount of information. There are two influences that Mercury makes. One to Neptune and one to Pluto that are critical. Also, what house? What is the place that Mercury is going to operate from in the sign of Cancer? That's a bit of a surprise, so I can't wait to share that with you. And then there are two major events in July. On the 1st, a cazimi with the Sun, which is in traditional astrology when, as we see it from planet Earth, Mercury is sat in the disk of the Sun exactly, which amplifies its qualities. But also on that event, both are angling up brilliantly to Jupiter, so that can be phenomenally powerful. But on the 10th of July, Mercury goes opposite the tiny but potent Pluto, and that can hold some challenges. I'm then going to go on to give you a brief overview of what you can expect for each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. Now, if you're new to my channel, it's great to have you with us. This is very much a community. Please share any thoughts you have. I try to interact with each one. But most of all, I'd be so grateful if you would like, share, or subscribe. I really work hard at these videos and your support means everything. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for joining me again. But if you would like to subscribe, please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. Just quickly, if you'd like to get your free written daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, I provide an overview of the dominant influence each day, plus all 12 zodiac signs. Please see the link beneath this video where you can subscribe. So as this event occurs on June the 27th, early in the morning at 12:24 a.m, Mercury in Cancer is housed in House 3, which is very Gemini-like. So that gives it a nimbleness, an ability to flex. Mercury, whether it's the ruler of Gemini or Virgo, is a mutable influence, therefore very flexible. So being in House 3 seems really quite apt. But you know that concept of learning by osmosis? I feel that Mercury in Cancer has a flavour of that. I was thinking about this, musing about this before I started the video. So obviously its rulership of Gemini is very much to do with quick, nimble communications, quick retorts, an ability to pivot in different ways, being very amusing. The sign of Virgo is very much more to do with precision, trying to understand where we can add a greater level of understanding through really penetrating to the core of a matter, stripping things down to what's really essential, but also, because it's an earth sign, getting something from it which is tangible, whereas Mercury in Gemini is much more to do with the conveying of ideas, or it can be to do with short journeys, our relationships with our neighbours, our siblings, but most of all technology. So Mercury in Gemini, very much about tech. So this issue of learning by osmosis is that some people don't necessarily learn by reading a book or an article online and absorbing the information. They learn it through their senses, and that really does seem to me to be very fitting for the journey of Mercury through Cancer. So People with Mercury in Cancer natally often can pick up things around them just by almost downloading it rather than necessarily, doing it in quite such a calibrated, precise way as its rulership of Gemini and Virgo. And they also are strongly influenced by their feelings. So, for example, you can have a conversation with someone and we both may have a view of what is discussed, but actually through the prism of Mercury in Cancer, actually what's absorbed may be different from what seemed to be discussed. So in other words, we take from the conversation what feels right for us. So there can be a subjectivity, but also it can see us thinking a lot about where we live, who we live with, and how we live there, and also thinking about our environment. If you are someone who's yet to work from home, don't be surprised if you do think about that concept more over the next couple of weeks. But certainly people with Mercury in Cancer can be very intuitive and very, very perceptive. So they can have a conversation, but it's the subtext that they're thinking about as the conversation's going on. They're forming an opinion of what that other person is really meaning. So that's where the perception comes in. Now, Mercury in the third house, very akin to Gemini, is a natural communicator. So I feel that this is a period over the next couple of weeks when we can communicate, but look to communicate our feelings, which is really important. Or maybe we can express our feelings in the messages we send, or perhaps if we're journaling or keeping a diary, or just musing about things, we can just think about conversations from a more emotional viewpoint. But certainly Mercury in the third house does need a lot of stimulation and gets rather bored rather easily. But if you are someone who really does love the immediate community you live in, or you're very close to your family, chances are there's going to be a picking up of interaction with people in your everyday world. But let's look at those two influences in the natal chart. So on the screen now, I'm showing the chart based on Greenwich Universal Time and using Placidus. So you can see the ascendant is at 25 degrees in Aries, but that puts Mercury in the third house. So there's two aspects I want to share with you. The first is the square with Neptune, which is just over 2.5 degrees. Now, if that rings a bell, it's because, yes, as Mercury moved through its home sign of Gemini, it squared up with Neptune. But also, of course, we had the square between Saturn in the sign of Pisces, where Neptune is, and the Sun. And that's when that submersible launched on the 18th. In fact, it was around the time of the Gemini full moon. And I did say at that time, because Neptune was applying to the Sun late in Gemini and the moon, that it could cause some distortion. Messages could go awry. And obviously, Gemini can be about short journeys. The sign of Pisces very much about the oceans, and the sign of Gemini can be about vehicles. Very sad event. So we do have a little bit of an echo of that still going on. So Mercury in Cancer is wanting to listen to how things feel, but in the third house it's being pushed to be clear about how it conveys those ideas. But Neptune in house 12 and in the sign of Pisces is bringing a lot of the subconscious into play. So I think it's possible that over the next couple of weeks, not all the conversations we have will be very straightforward. I think there is the potential for a lot of mixed messages, confusion, and if you are journeying anywhere, I think it is important to try to get a plan which has some backup options. So for example, if you go into the airport or you're going to the ferry terminal, just work out what would happen if there was a delay. So you have lots of water, maybe some things to read, make sure your phone's well charged, and everyone knows where you are. And keep an eye on the news programs to find out what the latest information is on any industrial disputes or delays that may occur. But the other influence on this event is Pluto. Pluto, late in the sign of Capricorn, is forging a quincunx with Mercury. Now this is really interesting, because if we think about Pluto as being so late as it is at 29:42 in Capricorn, and Mercury being so early, very difficult to integrate our thinking, the conveying of our ideas, with the concept of power, which is what Pluto is about. Now Pluto, ironically, although it is in Capricorn now, it's in house 11, very Aquarius. So deep stuff's coming to the surface. We're seeing more and more news about corruption, about dodgy deals, about communications that were done through WhatsApp rather than through proper governmental interfaces, because there are so many agendas floating around, and what's happening is that Pluto's pushing more and more out into the open. So expect more drama in the next couple of weeks. But you can also see that Saturn, the planet of structure but of restraint in Pisces, is ironically forging a very solid link with the Sun. So if we listen to our instincts and we're prepared to work at the emotional domain and think but also convey our feelings, something that in the Western world we can be quite inhibited about. We're great at expressing our point of view, but our point of view isn't necessarily our feelings. So this is a counterpoint to the swirling mist that Neptune brings to Mercury. Actually, the Sun's link to Saturn can be quite a solid, helpful construct. So if we're prepared to tune into how we feel, listen to our psychic antenna, if you like, it can guide us in a positive way. But if you have got a lot of anxieties going on or worries, or there are people around you that you don't feel that you can entirely trust or be sure of, do listen to any thoughts that come up. If something is telling you you're getting an inner red flag saying proceed with care, do listen to that information, because when we go against our sixth sense, that's when things go wrong. Now, if you would like to understand how natal astrology is working in your life, like I've just explained with this wheel, if you give me 3 pieces of your personal birth data, I can produce for you your 12-month forecast. But you can also, with 30% off, get your character analysis or life roadmap report, and these really can help you to understand what's going on in your situation with a great deal more depth. Totally unique to you, but if you don't know your time, my new charts based on the solar concept don't have an ascendant. They just base it on the Sun, but they're proving very popular too. Still 30% off. Please see the link below. Now, on July the 1st, I was telling you, a truly amazing event. So we have a cazimi, Mercury sitting in the disk of the Sun, and the Sun amplifying, therefore, Mercury's perception in the sign of Cancer. So that ability to feel things, that downloading, that osmosis, if you like, but also they're then given added exuberance by the location of Jupiter in the earthy Taurus. Now, Earth carries water, so the Sun and Mercury in Cancer, and we have Jupiter in Taurus. So some good things can come as we set our intentions right at the start of July. That is a mega wonderful influence. But obviously we can use the energy, the emotional energy of Cancer, to set our intentions, to really try to envision some kind of outcome that we would really like. And then the good fortune and the faith of Jupiter, good fortune for its rulership of Sagittarius, the faith, its rulership of Pisces, can see us bring something into reality that could be about where we live, a new addition to the family, an improvement in health for someone who may not have been feeling so good within our clan, or perhaps just becoming more at peace with how we feel and think about our own emotional inner world, because the most important relationship in life is the one with ourselves. So Mercury and the Sun in Cancer are asking us to tune in to what's going on in our gut, not so much what's going on in our head. It doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't use the mental capabilities of Mercury to balance our emotion, because as I said before, Mercury in Cancer can be a bit subjective, so we can find a balance. However, on July the 10th, Mercury goes opposite Pluto exactly. People who have this aspect in their natal charts can be very much conviction politicians, if you like. So, they are absolutely convinced that what they are saying or what they believe or what they think is correct, and they will do everything to try to persuade the other person to listen to what they have to say. But the danger with that, someone who's well-meaning could be very enthusiastic with that. Someone who just really wants to always be right from an egotistical viewpoint will adopt a might is right attitude, be belligerent, be a little bit of a bore, someone who's rather dogmatic and bumptious in not a very pleasant way. So watch out around that date, the 10th, because it could be that someone professionally makes a demand that has an impact at an emotional level. Someone invades our boundaries, isn't very respectful that we see things in a different way. All this kind of stuff is something to be conscious of on July the 10th. Now, please stay with me as I briefly go through each of the 12 signs, which you can relate to in terms of your sun or ascendant, choice is yours, to understand what this next fortnight will hold for your sign. So Aries, for the next 2 weeks, it's really important that if you do have some tender and sensitive issues circulating in your mind, you do actually let them out, you convey them. If you don't, you could find yourself getting a little bit overwhelmed, perhaps uncharacteristically emotional. You do have a wonderful combination between your ruler Mars and Venus in a much more outgoing part of your scope in coexisting with this transition. However, it's Neptune that's the key. Neptune's about to go into a retrograde on the 30th of June. So that means that a bit more of an inward phase is going to come in for you when you're really being asked to perhaps come to terms with some issues from your past, some that may be very, very powerfully rooted within you. So if you do feel that there is something delicate you want to say, creating just the right environment and the right moment to share that with a person who you feel will be receptive to you is going to be the trick of working with this from an emotional viewpoint in this next 2 weeks. Now, from a practical viewpoint, Mercury in this location can be wonderful. If you are someone who wants to make some changes to your home, but particularly where you may have a home office located, or perhaps you can create some extra space, or anything to do with where you have your TV or your music system located, you may be shifting those around if it just makes you feel more comfortable in the available room you have. Now, Taurus, for you, Mercury moving into the sign of Cancer is going to see a speeding up over the next couple of weeks. And this can be really good because you've got your ruler Venus in an alliance with Mars in house 4. And perhaps the combination of these energies is going to push you to invite people around, and you could play mine host. Few signs have an appreciation of good food and wine, like a Taurus, and you could spoil people in the best way possible. But more seriously, your ideas are very important to you. You've been pushed to be much more open in recent years with Pluto in house 9 and Uranus in your own sign. Very provocative influences, both of them. But Neptune in your 11th house is very much to do with your higher values, your friendships and your future. I think the conversations you have over the next couple of weeks could reveal some disappointments. But what I feel that you can gain is that with Venus aligning to Mars, the people who really do bolster the fabric of your emotional being are the people that you should orientate your time towards. So in other words, try to be aware that the white noise that we're all assailed with these days, whether it's grim news about the economy, obviously to do with the war in Ukraine, whatever, some of this stuff is hard going. And if you need to give yourself a little bit of a barrier at times, to give yourself some escapism from the constant news cycle, don't be fearful of doing it. And certainly Mercury in the third house can stimulate your ability to be creative, to write things, to share any knowledge you have, or perhaps even go on a course where you gain new insights and information. Now Gemini, as Mercury, your ruler, makes its way out of your sign and into Cancer, it gives you an opportunity to think all about the money. But of course it isn't just about money. It's also about how valuable we feel. And if you have been developing some ideas recently, whether they are just purely creative or you've taken up a new hobby, I think you're going to start to see tangible progress, which actually can be really satisfying for how you feel about yourself. But if you do want to focus on converting some ideas into a new source of income, there's no doubt about it, as the combination between the Sun and Mercury and Jupiter on the 1st of July materializes, that really could see you drawing into the depths of your past experiences, knowledge, something that you've been developing on the back burner can really start to shape up in a super positive way. And if you really need to stand up for your personal interests around your resources, that collision between Mercury and Pluto, metaphorically, of the 10th, can also see you stand up for what you think is really important for you. So it's important to understand the second house is about foundations. Because you're quite a fluid person, and because of the influence of Neptune, I think if there is something that is more in the planning phase still, if you are wanting to discuss it with someone in a position of influence, even if you are sketching the idea out at this stage, and however inspirational it is, it may be better to just wait for things to evolve a little bit more, so they're a bit more solid before you share it. And that's where Neptune could be a bit mischievous for you, but it certainly can inspire your imagination, that's for sure. Which brings us to Cancer, and of course Mercury being in your sign, absolutely gorgeous, because in its journey through the sign of Gemini, it's probably tested you in some ways, because a 12th house transit can see us feeling a bit cut off from other people, a bit disconnected, perhaps a little bit withdrawn. It moving into your sign can move you into your own power. And also because of that link on the 1st of July with the Sun in Cancer, and that splendid sextile, very enabling, with the planet of growth Jupiter, I think you're going to pick up a lot of vibrancy as you come into the new month. But what about that role of Neptune? Well, Neptune's in the part of your situation which will amplify, but it's so late. I think anything to do with your worldly involvements that aren't quite going as you would like, those could feel amplified. So, for example, if you're someone who's very much an individual, you like to follow your own instincts when it comes to creativity, but you work in a bigger organisation where you're expected to put those natural parts of your nature to one side and apply to the system, that kind of stuff could actually be very draining for you over the next couple of weeks. So look to focus on things that are exciting, that you can be innovative around, that you can get off the ground. New strands, new excitement coming into your world. Really fab for you. Leo, Mercury moving into Cancer, perhaps is more challenging for your sign more than most. And part of the reason for this is that House 12 is our time each year of reflection. You have the Sun recently arrived there on the 21st of June, and now you have Mercury joining the Sun. So House 12 can see us quite tender. But the contrast this year is because you've got Venus and Mars and the part of fortune glittering array in your sign. You're really drawing a lot of very positive energy to you. But what this combination could do, particularly in the square with Neptune, is it could help you to see who's not so good for your soul. So at the moment, because you're needing to manifest your individuality very strongly, if anyone around you feels or seems to be a little bit jealous or insecure about the star quality that you are manifesting, those are the people you need to be mindful of, because this is a time when you really need to go for it around your glorious talents. But unfortunately, if there is anyone you can't truly rely upon, those fair weather friends may be revealed over the next couple of weeks. Virgo, for you, Mercury being your ruler, it moving into Cancer is fantastic, because this is the 11th house, very much about sociability. The sun's there as well, but also it can help you to think about your future. But you're thinking with feeling in this location, because your thinking can be a bit cool and rather surgical at times. So there's a little bit more passion floating around with Mercury in Cancer, which is good for you. So the friends that you can feel a sense of fraternity with very easily and share how you feel, they're going to be good for you. What's not to like? Well, if a partner has a different vision for the future to you, that might come up in the next couple of weeks, particularly with Venus and Mars still working their way through your 12th house. If you're single at the moment, someone in your friendship circle may make some kind of overture towards you, but they may not articulate it. It may come through non-verbal communication, so watch out for that. So Libra, the next 2 weeks give you a glorious opportunity to raise your profile. Now, you can be a very persuasive communicator at the best of times, and with Venus aligning with the passionate Mars in the friendly 11th house of your situation, amplified by that Leo magic, this could be the time when you can reach someone in a position who can assist you to gain greater traction. It could be that you're going to go through some kind of course to do with your work. Perhaps you're going to do something more informally within a current business, or you're going to apply and attend a training scheme. Very often when Mercury passes across the 10th house cusp, new jobs can be in the mix. So that's exciting. It's just that Neptune and Saturn are in house 6, so that's the actual process within the job. So it's important that if you go for something, that you're not overstretching yourself, that it is something that you're going to really enjoy and feel passionate about. The other thing with Mercury in the 10th house, it's very much the leader part of your nature. If you do need to get across to other people what you expect, you should be able to get the language across in such a way that gets people behind you. So Neptune just means, in its square with this position of Mercury, that you are not overdoing it in terms of your physical resources and pushing yourself a little bit too hard. So Scorpio, Mercury moving into your sister water sign of Cancer could give you a real desire to expand your horizons, maybe around the type of TV programs you watch, the music you listen to. Could see you taking in some concerts, some cultural events. It may be that you decide that you want to really start looking more seriously for a higher educational course, maybe one that you can do in terms of distance learning. It could be that you're going to be thinking about a longer term travel plan, either planning it or you actually go on it in the next couple of weeks. Really exciting stuff. If you are traveling anywhere, the more cultural side of wherever you go could be exciting. You know, most people like to have a little bit of immersion in the ocean, quite fitting with the Sun and Mercury in the sign of Cancer. But I feel that also taking in, you know, local historical artifacts and visitor centres would be just perfect for this particular transition. Now, the ninth house can also be about contracts, and if you are looking to actually change your job, a job that involves travel within itself, such as a rep or a delivery driver or so forth, could also be very attractive to you. What about Neptune? Well, Neptune is in house 5 for you, but we need to visualize it as being in house 6 because it's so close to Aries. So that ninth, 6th house energy means it's important that you don't overpromise and underdeliver. So your enthusiasm can be significant, but it's important to keep it under a tight rein. Now, your modern ruler is in a quincunx with the position of Mercury, and this can also provide some challenges because I feel that it's nearly in house 4, which is the emotional side of things, just when the Sun and Mercury are pushing you to get out and about more. And because Mars and Venus are in such a dominant part of your situations, you could really go for something in a very assertive way, but important to stay in touch with how things feel. Sagittarius, Mercury moving into house 8 gives you a glorious opportunity to decipher not what people are saying to you, but what they really mean, which of course Mercury in Cancer has a flavour of that anyway. But house 8 can be in a more practical sense, anything to do with business. If you are a more entrepreneurial person, or you are looking at insurances or investments or property deals, Mercury here will help you to delve into the facts in a very astute way. But because Neptune is in nearly house 5 but on the cusp in house 4, your emotional world is very enhanced at the moment, but with some potential challenges, particularly with Saturn in house 4. So I feel if you are thinking, for example, of changing where you're living and it is going to require some kind of financial changes in your situation, just really check all the information thoroughly. Now, Capricorn, for you, Mercury moves into the 7th house. Whilst it's been going through Gemini, it's been in a very brittle energetic transition, and at times you may have had headaches or felt irritable, or little things that ordinarily wouldn't get you may have got under your skin, and that could be some of the people you live with. So Mercury in the 7th house helps us to be a little bit more detached, a bit more logical. We can hear other people's where they're coming from and be less offended even if they don't agree with us. It's a really healthy location. It's all about finding points of mutual interest where we can reach accords, interacting in a harmonizing way. So this could be very exciting for your relationship prospects if you're single over the next couple of weeks. Of course, Neptune and Saturn are in house 3, so it's all about how you actually convey information and the ideas, and you need to make sure that you take care with that. You're usually quite cautious, but I think your ability to cultivate some good interactions with others is definitely on the up. That's fab. Which brings us to Aquarius. Mercury moves into house 6. It is Cancer, but it has a flavour of the Virgo side of Mercury, which is the details, the precision, making sure that things work well and efficiently. So clearly, if you're someone like this Aquarius who lives in a perfect domestic ideal, if I showed you this room behind the camera, you really would burst out laughing. Well, you can find perhaps some marginal gains around your diet where you can learn a few more pieces of information, Mercury, to improve your welfare, 6th house. But seriously, if you need to have a declutter, get stuff to the recycling centre or to your local charity shop, this is a great couple of weeks to go for it. But also, you could find that you will have a much sharper eye for details over the next couple of weeks, but certainly emotional details. And Aquarius people can be a bit detached and easygoing, but maybe little things could get on you and my nerves over the next couple of weeks. We've just got to be aware of that. And of course, Pluto, so late in Capricorn, is interacting with this Mercury position. So certainly if you're born at the start of Aquarius, balancing your need to be an individual with where you need to help and assist others. The sixth house may be a bit more challenging. If you're born later into Aquarius, it can actually be rather pleasant. It can be a trine, and that's rather enabling. So generally Mercury in Cancer is looking for domestic perfection. Now that brings us to Pisces. Mercury here for you is in the sector of play. Mercury in the fifth house can be great fun. If you're someone who has a lively sense of humour and a bit of mischief about you, that's really going to be switched on. If you have felt a bit out of form recently, it really wouldn't be a surprise. You know, because you have got two important players in your sign and they've both been in conflict with the Sun and Mercury in Gemini. Now Saturn's in a great link with the Sun, but Mercury, because it's so late in your sign, is still in the square with Neptune. So I think, you know, when it comes to having fun, one of the ways that we can achieve that is by having some retail therapy, splashing out a bit, spoiling ourselves, spoiling the people we really love. And that's all great, but there could be some shimmering confusion around a romantic situation, or if you're creative, if you don't really feel that you're getting the recognition you deserve, or perhaps even the money, that could prove to be a little bit frustrating. But generally, Mercury in the fifth house is a chance for you to be more playful over the next couple of weeks. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Wishing you all the best for the next couple of weeks, and goodbye for now.